I'm Dr. Randall Kinnison with Genesis Mediation, and I want to talk to you about succession planning. So real quick, what does a mediator do in succession planning? Why get a mediator involved? Well, let me tell you this. Most succession plans fail not because of the wonderful work your professionals have done in your legal and your financial field. It's because of the human dynamics, whether there's, oftentimes it's family dynamics that are going on, or it's just plain interpersonal human dynamics that are going south. So I have kept a number of succession plans together by talking people off the cliff several different times and helping to smooth over family issues so that they don't blow up the case. So let me tell you how I start and why I think you maybe should start with somebody like myself in the mediation field to answer some critical questions before you even begin the succession process. So one of the things I sit down and I talk to the business owner about, if it's family related, I want to understand the family. I want to know, do the kids really want it? Sometimes owners want to give the business to their kids for estate purposes. I totally get that, for tax planning purposes. However, you need to make sure the kids really want it. You need to understand how this will affect your kids. Will this be problematic with their relationships? Who's going to actually materially participate in the business? If anyone does, who will not? Who will run the business then? Tons of questions around that transition about what it looks like to have the kids own the business. Sometimes it's just one child who owns the business. How will that impact the other kids? How will the rest of their inheritance be impacted? What's that going to look like? Will they perceive it as fair? Is it going to cause fights? Is there going to be some misunderstandings? Again, many questions around succession when it comes to families. And you need to think about these up front before you start promising things and before you start doing any actual estate planning or legal planning. I want to understand the corporate dynamics. What's the business actually look like? If our key employees going to stay? How will they feel about one of the children assuming the business, if that's going to be the case? Are they going to assume the business? Well, how do the other employees feel about that? So there's lots of things to think about in the corporate dynamic. I've started an HR firm called Genesis Human Resources, and so I get the dynamics between the workplace and the employees and the culture. That's really important to think about too. And then just and then if you're going to sell it, what are those transitions going to look like? Are your key employees going to stay? Are they going to leave? Will they, because they know they might be displaced. So that can be key for the new business owner. Are you going to help in the purchasing plan? Are you going to help maybe float some of the costs for it? What are all those dynamics look like? What would it look like if your new owner defaults in that situation? So I'm going to ask you a lot of questions about how you're approaching this, because I think that's really key to think through those up front. I deal with conflict. I'm thinking about how to mitigate conflict, how to try and make the process go as smoothly as possible. So that's the starting point. That's my first conversations. Once you choose, then you have a key decisions to make. Is it going to pass to the kids? Are any of the kids going to materially participate? Is it going to pass to an employee, key employees? Are they going to own the business? Maybe all the employees are going to own the business. Or are we just going to put the company up for sale? If that's the case, then sometimes I'm involved in the negotiation piece to try and make sure the transition works well, and through the negotiations to mediate the negotiations. And you'll find out that can be a very helpful thing as I keep people engaged and at the table instead of walking away. So that's the next piece. During the actual transitions, then, there's always some bumps in the road, and the handoffs. Handoffs are the most critical part of a relay race, right? It's how to pass the baton. So whether you're passing that baton to your children, whether you're passing it to key employees, or whether you're passing it to a new owner, that passing is a very critical time in the life of the company, and you want to make sure that goes as smoothly as possible. I'm there to try and help things go as smoothly as possible. And then finally, it's the new paths going forward. Usually there's some things to smooth over if it's family related. Usually there's some bumps in the road, and I've even had some families keep me on retainer just to keep a buffer there to help me walk through some things with them. It makes everybody feel a little better knowing there's somebody there to talk to and buffer some of the conflicts that can come up. That's kind of an extreme case actually, but sometimes I'm just engaged for a little while to make sure that transitions go smoothly, especially if it's a father-child thing or a family situation. There's lots of things that can go south, and you don't want to ruin your family dynamics. You don't want family to bleed over to business. You don't want business to bleed over to family, and you want to be able to enjoy your family and enjoy your business. You also need to understand the corporate dynamics that might change and knowing how to smooth out corporate dynamics as they go through a transition. It's usually whenever there's a transition, it's difficult for employees. They're always wondering who's going to be able to stay, who might get fired, and helping through a transition can be very helpful. And having somebody like myself who's a mediator, who also understands HR, also understands those pieces. I've got people on my team that are exactly like me, and we can help you through those processes and keep you engaged in the process. So that's why Genesis Mediation can help you through your succession and make sure it's a successful succession. So give us a call. We'd love to talk to you about the dynamics and know how we might come alongside you and make sure your succession not only is successful, but also peaceful.